Hi, I'm Dr. Sadhna Bokhiria, and this is LeaderVoices, a show about leaders and their infinite ability to change the world. Each episode in LeaderVoices, we dig into stories and sparks from for-purpose leaders, coaches, comedians, luminaries, and everyday heroes from around the globe. Tales of impact and failing forward, of aspirations and innovations, and the infinite and inspiring ways that social purpose leaders lead and make the world a better place. Join us today as we introduce a new guest. It is a pleasure to introduce our next guest to LeaderVoices. Nicole Van Valen has a gazillion acronyms after her name because it looks like she's had every single certification and degree possible. She is a distinguished leader and speaker with over 2 decades of experience in healthcare, behavioral health, and entertainment. She is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Keane Insights, where she drives growth and vibrant cultures in social service and healthcare organizations. And she is a leader who really focuses on enhancing resilience, belonging, and inclusion into the various organizations that she supports. Another interesting aspect about her background is she was a cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins, the University of Miami, and she was also on the Miami Heat dance teams. She inspires resilience in and out of the workplace, and I'm so excited to talk to her about her background. Nicole has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a Master of Science in Marriage and Family Therapy. And she also studied organizational leadership, specializing in human resources. She is a certified expert in inclusive workplace culture, something that has been a topic, and I say this sadly, that hasn't had enough of a presence in history. I feel like this is a relatively new concept, unfortunately, and I'm really excited to dive deep with her on the ways in which she supports these important organizational cultural pillars. Living in South Florida, Nicole is a wife and mother of 3, obviously navigating the complex challenges of life, leadership, family with grace. Rooted in empathy and effectiveness, she shapes organizational cultures with love, joy, and spirit. It is such an honor to introduce you to LeaderVoices and to have you join me here today, Nicole. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be able to be here and just shed some light on ways that we can help people overcome stress, manage it a little bit better, and just be resilient so they can go back into the workforce, into their lives, and make positive impacts with those around them.
Tell us a little bit about your journey from being a dancer for high-profile teams like the Miami Dolphins and Heat to leading a healthcare and social service organization.
Well, all growing up, my parents put me in all these different extracurricular activities, soccer, dance, track. I mean, anything and everything, I was completely involved. I think it's coming from Caribbean parents. They just put us in everything. And the one that stood out to me the most as I was going through school was dance. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And then, and cheerleading. So, you're in elementary school, middle school, high school, you're a cheerleader and you take some dance classes and you're like, oh, this is wonderful. Somehow I ended up trying out for the University of Miami cheerleading team. And it was the summer before college would have started. And I tried out and I made the team. Granted, I had a full ride scholarship to a totally different college. But because I made the cheerleading team at University of Miami, I was like, this is it. I went to the campus. It looked like the Bahamas where I'm from. I'm like, this is my home. I was so excited. So I was a cheerleader there. Then my second year, I was on the varsity cheerleading squad. We were traveling all over, going to all the football games, basketball games. My third year that I was supposed to be a cheerleader, and I was known for being the cheerleader. That was my whole identity. Didn't make the team. Devastated, thought my world was over. I was a typical cheerleader with a football player boyfriend, and that was just my whole entire identity. Didn't make it. Walking around campus, I run into someone and they asked me if I wanted to try out for the dance team. Sure, I had nothing else to do, just school. Tried out. That was like the beginning of everything. And I was a dancer for 2 years. And then I said, okay, no, I'm graduating college. Dance is over. Ended up trying out for the Miami Dolphins. Did that for 2 years while I was getting my master's in marriage and family therapy. They said, oh, we want you to come back for a third year. You're going to be captain. I'm like, captain, that's awesome. But I have class on Wednesday night. And they're like, no, you cannot miss rehearsal. Went ahead and said that was the end of dance for me. I'm going to be a professional. And I tried out for the Miami Heat dance team. And I did that for 2 years. And that was ecstatic. I was ecstatic about it. I was doing that while working for a nonprofit organization called Women in Distress. We're helping women of victims of domestic violence and their children. So all along, I'm dancing in the evenings at the games. During the day, I'm this professional, buttoned up professional, and I'm training law enforcement, doctors, lawyers on domestic violence for their CEU credits. So I was always dancing and professionally working throughout my life. And there became a time when I became the assistant director for the University of Miami and for the Miami Heat basketball team at the same time while I was working. And it was kind of undercover hidden until I started working for a Fortune 4 company, and they did an article on me. And by that time, I was a senior leader at that time. And I was like, well, I've proven to myself it's okay to let the cat out of the bag. And there was a whole article on my dance and chair background while helping in the mental health field, because I was part of a mental health organization then. And that's when I began to feel comfortable about divulging my whole entire identity as a dancer cheerleader and a professional helping people with their mental health and well-being. So that's kind of how it all happened. And then looking back, when I look at my career in corporate America and working with nonprofit organizations, now having my own business, I realized that dance had been my resilience resource throughout my whole entire professional career. That was what I was able to fall back on whenever I was going through any changes or trials or tribulations in the workforce. And with the constant changes that happen in the workforce and different things that are going on in society, dance has been my go-to in everything that I've done. So now I'm at a place where I want people to have that, to understand and identify what is it for them that is their resource that helps them to stay resilient.
Hmm. So when you talk about it, this is so fascinating to me. Thank you so much for sharing, because it's so unique and it seems disconnected. And when you talk about it, you talk about it almost as if, you had your professional life and then you're doing something that hundreds of thousands of people in the world would kill for that opportunity. And obviously you have to be the best of the best to get into those roles as a dancer. As a cheerleader, I mean, it's not easy. It's highly competitive, highly, skill based. And it's interesting to me because it almost sounds, if I'm hearing you correctly, as if it was like you weren't ready to connect them both. Tell me a little bit about how this concept of professionalism in many ways maybe took away from you sharing like this incredible accomplishment.
Yes. I mean, even to this day, so I'm writing a book on, and we just came up with the title, and I'm revealing it here, is The Joyful Leader. Even that title in and of itself, when I'm working with the publisher and my editors, I was almost having, I don't know what you call it, but it's like, oh my gosh, my whole heart I'm giving you in this title. Like The Joyful Leader, I'm always known to be bubbly and like everyone's cheerleader per se,
Sure.
supporting other people, making sure that they're shining and everything. But to actually like have that written on a title of a book, even though people know that this is who I am, but to actually in writing in front of the masses to see it is almost like, wow, that's my whole entire essence of myself, divulging that for everyone to see. And almost that feeling of like, will I still be taken seriously? Like I have all this education and certifications and all of these things. And I'm 5'2.5", itty bitty. Everyone else in the family is like 6 feet. My nephew's like 6'7". My brother's like 6'5". My husband's 6. My daughter's like 5'10", almost 5'11". Like everybody is huge. So I'm almost like feeling like I have to prove my knowledge base and all of these things. And now I'm at this place where I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have to prove anything. I can just be who I am, help people, which is my ultimate goal in life, in a unique way. And I'm always teaching the kids, like, okay, be different. When my daughter was in dance, she's got this, I'm looking at your hair, I'm like reminding me of my daughter, she's got this curly hair. And I used to be like, be different. You're tall, you got this big poof, it's beautiful, you'll stand out. And now here I am about to stand out and going, oh my gosh, I'm going to be different. So
sure, there's a vulnerability to it. And just so you know, you got a half inch on me at 5'2.5", because I'm just 5'2" on a good day.
lovely.
But it's interesting because it seems, like a disconnect, but it's the dance that fueled the resilience. And I wonder how much of that is just like the sheer athleticism and the cardio that you're doing. Because I mean, you're like a professional athlete.
Yeah, we were dancing at our highest level, and we had rehearsals all night. Then you get up the next day, you do your professional job, and then it's a cycle, and then you're performing. So with dance, it really helped me get ready, because I have this ready, set, go model, like the 3 stages to help you build your resilience. And I'm always ready, always on. And it was so funny when people in corporate realized that I had this dance cheerleader background. They're like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand the way you are. Like, because I'd be thrown changes, or something happens and they're not going to go forward with whatever proposal. So I'm like, I'll just drop another one. It's almost like the hurry up wait of entertainment, where you're like, okay, I'm going to pitch this. And if I get it, great. If I don't, I'm already on to the next audition, or next performance. So it's all, I think it really did help build resilience, because with dance and cheer, you have to be on holistically, meaning how you present yourself, how you represent that team, how you speak, holding interviews, making sure that other people are happy and entertained and having the best experience that they can have. It's almost like customer service in a sense, and entertainment all rolled up into one. And I think I gravitated towards that because I always want to be helping other people. And even though I had the light shining on me at the time, it was at a distance. Like, we had a stage, we had a court, we had a field. Now things are a little bit more up close and personal with being a CEO of my own business, and with writing the book, or creating an e-learning course for people to manage their stress. Like, I am totally, fully all in.
Right. Right. What are the pillars of resilience? And, we throw this word around all the time. You have to be resilient. You have to be resilient. How can you teach someone to be resilient?
Yes. So this word resilience, it's like people have to look it up. What does this mean? Or what does it mean for you? And for me, it's based on 3 different stages that we go through anytime we're faced with a change or a challenge in our life. And this is something we can do repeatedly. It's not a one-time thing. And I use this sometimes daily, several times a day, where you're faced with a change or challenge, and then you have to discover who you are in the midst of that challenge. So how are you going to cope with that? What is it going to work? What is it going to be for you that works? So for me, I discovered several things that work for me. So if I'm going through a change or a challenge, kind of step back, go into my little bubble, and I might drink a hot cup of chai, like chai tea I love, and it just relaxes me, soothes me. Or I might go outside, I have a garden, and I have roses, and I will literally go and smell the roses. Like, I picked roses to plant in my garden, and I smelled each one of them to make sure they smell really good before I put them back there. Or I'll plant. So I've got banana trees, papaya trees, mango tree, like all kind of fruit trees. And that's my Caribbean side coming out again, where I can just walk my backyard. And if you don't have a backyard, Other things are walking the neighborhood. So I have a little golden doodle, Layla, and I will walk her around the block and just get some sunlight on your face. So I journal, I meditate. So these are the things that I enjoy. So I'll just tell you a side story. So that when it was COVID, there's 5 of us in the family. So I have my husband, my daughter, 2 boys, blended family. COVID comes around and I'm like doing all the research. How are we going to manage ourselves? Okay, we need to do yoga. I don't even like yoga. We're all going to get up at 7 a.m. I'm a night person. I'm not a morning person, but we're all doing it. So we're all doing yoga. We got the video up on the TV and we're all up early doing it. Only my daughter and husband like yoga. Like everybody else would rather be sleeping. But anyway, we're doing it. And then finally, everyone's like, we don't want to do this. And I'm like, I don't want to do this either. And then everyone picked their own thing. So my daughter went into getting art supplies online, delivered. The boys were into video games and board games with my husband. Like we all did our things. And then we did our separate things in our own quarters and came back to eat for meal times or watch a group show. So it's kind of like you have to figure out what works for you that will energize you, that will enlighten you, that will put you in this place where your mindset is able to grow and not be in a fixed mindset because of a change or challenge. So that's number one. And then number two, you can come outside of your bubble at that point and you can design your landscape. And what I mean by that is like, go and design the culture, the surroundings that you're in, whether that's in the corporate world, whether that's at home. So you're renewed, refreshed, open-minded. You come in and go into your landscape. And because you're a little bit renewed and have this new energy, that affects everything and everyone around you. So even if you're in a situation where you feel like you don't have any control, there's a sense of control because you're controlling yourself and how you respond to things, how you perceive what other people are saying and their behaviors and how you then respond. So that's number two. And then three is you can go ahead and deliver on your goals then, because now, because of your second step where you are different in that environment, you may have people on your team that are willing to work with you, collaborate with you. You're helping other people. They're helping you. It's like it's the dynamics change. Then you have more fuel to deliver on your goal. So that's kind of the step is you discover yourself, you design the landscape, and then you go and deliver on your goal. So you kind of get ready, you get set, and then you go is the process. But we notice that stressors don't change. Like there's always going to be stress. There are always going to be changes. So you can take that same model, the 3 pillars, and redo them, rediscover yourself in a new situation, redesign the landscape based on that situation. And then you can deliver on your new goals based on what's happening or I know this is a long way for me to give you the pillars, but I wanted to make sure I share that model.
Yeah, no, it helps tremendously. And I'm taking notes here because, I don't want to miss this. I don't want to have the conversation and then not be able to remember it because it's so important and it's so helpful. It sounds like you're saying, like if I was to reiterate it, step 1 is almost a sensory experience, at least for you. So it's like the warm chai, smelling the roses. It helps you instead of spotlighting on whatever the changes that might be limiting your vision, you're able to pull it up wider, get outside, go for a walk, right? So start there. And then think about once you've done that and you've kind of got out, like you've widened your lens in a way by not focusing in tunnel vision, then you're basically, if I have this correctly, you're saying, okay, what do I want this to look like? Like, yeah, I might not have control over whatever the change is, but what do I want it to look like? Design your landscape, as you said, because you've had a time to retreat into what works for you, whatever that is, like your family did eloquently during COVID. And then you design it based on what you want, what you can control, and then you accomplish your goals. You tackle them with this new framework, right?
Oh, I love the way that you put that because I never even realized what I was doing was more sensory. Like I didn't know it was like sight, smell, touch, because I am like in the love languages, I'm high physical touch.
Yes, me too.
It's like extreme physical touch and quality time. So that is actually what I'm doing, like I'm having quality time with myself where you can block out the noise, block out the chaos, block out all of that, and you are able to sit with your thoughts and in an expanded state. Like you're saying, a wider view. And that's what visionaries do. That's what leaders do. They need that time away to actually strategize and plan. And each individual needs that too for their own personal lives as well.
Hmm. So when we talk about, diversity and inclusion, you're a certified expert in inclusion, inclusive workplace culture. What is that?
Oh,
Like, how do you do that?
that's a big question. What is that? Oh my God, it's so much. Oh my goodness. So it's really about, when I think about designing the landscape, it's like looking at a culture and seeing about, and you're part of it. So how do you fit into that? Or how do you be yourself, your authentic self, and be a part of the culture? And not only be a part of it, but how do you contribute to it in a way that no one else could? Because you are your unique self. How do you bring your diversity of thought into that space? How do you have a seat at whatever table you are an expert in, where you're a subject matter expert in that space? So it's really about being included and being aware of who you are. And that happens in the first step with discovering yourself and being comfortable in that and being confident in it. And then you can go into this landscape, into a culture and say, this is who I am. I like to say your professionally authentic self, because we don't, we have other selves, but we want to make sure we're our professionally authentic selves, given where you are. And how do you show up? How do you represent yourself? Or how do you represent your company or whoever you're representing? Sometimes I'm representing my family. How am I showing up as a family, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, all of the different aspects of ourselves? So when I talk about culture, inclusion, diversity, I'm talking about you as an individual person and all that you bring holistically into any space. And how do you show up and be included and let people understand who you are, not based on assumptions. I can tell you a story. I remember, okay, so I'm Caribbean. I'm from the Bahamas. I came to the United States when I was 1 year old, but surrounded by Caribbean people, right? My parents were the first to come to the United States. So my mindset, the way that I think, is from my Caribbean culture with a British background. Sure. Being in the United States, and I was working in supplier diversity, that kind of space before launching into my own business. And there were assumptions that I was African American with the African American mindset or African American experiences. And though I may have gone through similar experiences, my mindset was a little bit different. So I didn't experience things the ways other people could. And regardless of your background, no one experiences things exactly the same way each person does. So here I am going, someone asks me a question. I'm running to my husband who's African American and asking him, what does this mean? Why would someone say this? What's going on? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And then he would tell me from his experience, and I would go back to the landscape and say, oh, this, and this. And then I finally got to the place where I was like, I can't keep going back and forth. I'm not being my authentic self. So I had to tell people, I'm Nicole. This is my background. This is the way that I think. And it was so interesting because I went through that feeling like, oh, I wouldn't be accepted because other people's perceptions are this of me in this landscape. They're like, oh, that's interesting. That makes me feel comfortable. I didn't know. What do you think about this? So they were more intrigued about who I really was versus who I was trying to be right. in that space. So just each step along the way lets me know that it's okay to be myself. Sure. It's okay not to have all the answers. And it's okay to try to figure it out together with others as a team and as a group, as an organization.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate kind of the call out on this concept of being your professional, authentic self. It's like, it's similar to, I think, some of the teachings of Brene Brown, where she talks about how you don't want, like, being authentic doesn't mean you just share whatever it is, right? Like, you have to recognize that not everyone should have you shouldn't give people power that they don't have. And being authentic doesn't mean you're like verbal, vomit of like whatever's going through because you're like real or whatever that is. There are boundaries there. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience of having a realization where you're saying, people project what they think you are, and having that awareness and that transition, that coming of age, if you will, where you recognize, like, just because you think that this is who I am or how I should be, I need to like kind of frame it for you and tell you who I am in a professionally authentic manner.
Exactly. So for when I was going through that experience, it was really eye-opening for me. I guess for me, it's almost like an awakening in a sense. So
Yeah,
it's
great word choice.
awakening to say, for me to say, it's okay for me to take a risk and tell people. And I'm telling people who are my peers, and I'm telling people who might have a higher level role
Hmm.
that this is who I am. And now they don't, they're not coming to me with those questions they know that I can't answer. So
Hmm.
that was a relief for me because I'm pretending to know the answer. You know what I mean? I'm pretending to know the answer. So even though I'm working in a particular field and I'm there to help people, I realized that by being my professionally authentic self, I was helping myself. I was building my own confidence of myself. And then at the same time, I was helping other people realize what they were saying and doing that they may not have been consciously aware of. I had someone say to me when I joined a team, it was one person was from a Hispanic background, another was, Caucasian, white American, and then myself. And someone said to me, "Oh, my daughter is is engaged to or living with an African American man, and what do I do when they have children? Like, what do I do with my grandchild?"
It's
And
a
I
deep
go,
question. Change
said,
their diapers? I don't know.
well,
Let
I
them sleep.
love, I said, love them. Like, that's what you
Yeah.
do with your family. Like, you love them. And then, and then they wanted me to take on the role of being the African American
Expert.
female on the team. And I go, but I can't take on that role because I'm not what you're expecting for that role. So I said, I can tell you who I am, and I'm Nicole. Because even though I'm saying I'm Caribbean, this is how I think, and all of these things, ultimately I'm Nicole because I can say, other friends and family that are Caribbean may have gone through similar experiences, but they haven't gone through the Nicole experiences. So I
Right.
can only speak for myself. And even though I'm saying I'm Caribbean, I'm not speaking for every Caribbean person, even though we have similar experiences.
Sure.
And I definitely can't speak to any other backgrounds as well. So when I think about my daughter, she's half Bahamian and half Nicaraguan. So she has a Hispanic background to herself. I can't speak for everything that she's going through from that. And then I have my blended family with sons who are Asian, African American, and Caucasian is theirs. So when I say blended and diverse and ways of thinking, the foods we eat, in our household is that. And then when I think of my extended family, we've got blonde hair, blue eyes on one side, and very, very dark on the other side. And every time a family member is going to have a baby, we are all excited to see how is that baby going to look. And we love everyone and it's amazing, but it's just almost like, ooh, exciting. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but I'm just saying we're so diverse within ourselves as individual people.
Right.
That's enough right there to try to tackle.
Yes.
Beyond
No, you did answer the question. And it's such a great approach, because what you're saying is, I'm Nicole, I'm Sadhna. I can't even uncover the layers of genetic diversity within my body, but I can tell you that this is my name and this is who I am. And I really don't represent or speak for an entire group of people. And you're also saying, focus on the big picture. Like you said, you love them, right? Like that's really the point. Like, what else is there? And so, I mean, I love the emphasis on your name as your identity, because let's say that there's another person, right? You have a doppelganger. Your doppelganger, exactly the same genetic makeup, whatever that is, and their name is Amanda, right? Mm-hmm. Amanda's going to have a different experience than you in terms of whatever her, even just from the name, It's so much more complex. And I think that the challenge is when you have people, or when you have structures and systems that dumb it down by suggesting that people can neatly be put in these boxes, no matter what your background is, as a African-American, Indian-American, whatever it is, as a white American, even that, like, you can't put them in a box and just assume that it's that simple. Like, we're just not made that way.
I know. I was just talking to my dad about it the other day. He's like, I refuse to check the box. I'm like, I don't know what you would check anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too much of an oversimplification. And I think if you have that mindset and you get to hopefully you get to a certain part in your life where you have a little bit more wisdom to understand that you just can't do that. You can't put people in boxes. They don't fit.
Right. And so I've been kind of sheltered. I'm going to admit, I lived a sheltered life. Some of it I chose, some of it, that's how I was brought up. So it's kind of difficult for people who may not have lived this similar life that I've had and had a lot of different experiences to have the thought process that I have. And I'm not saying my thought process is the best way, the only way, or anything like that, but it's difficult if you're in a landscape or environment where people are telling you who you are, and inside you're like, that's not me, but that's who you've been told you are all of your life. I can say that I've been fortunate enough, to be surrounded by people who accepted who I was or am throughout my life. And there are other things, like Caribbean parents, they want you to have more degrees. And you said I have 1 million, but I'm sure they want me to get some more. I'm pretty good right now.
Indian parents are the same, by the way.
So
doctor, lawyer, major disappointment. Those are your 3 options.
Those were my options. So I was pre-law because my dad was, in medical. He's in medical, OBGYN, retired OBGYN. And I was like, I don't like blood and I get queasy. So I guess I have to be a lawyer. And I majored in psychology just because in philosophy. And then I did an internship and I was like, oh my goodness, this is not for me. I'm kind of scared of the courthouse. Get involved in that. And so I was like, now what am I going to do? No doctor or lawyer. And then I just stayed the course with psychology.
Very interesting. I mean, you have a really fascinating background from, even just like talking about like being part of like the Miami Heat. Like what was that like from a social perspective in terms of group dynamics?
It was amazing. So when I reflect back on it, like I just did it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, it's a big deal, but I didn't realize how big of a deal it was until after, especially when I get involved in alumni activities. And there's only so few of us that actually did Miami Heat and Miami Dolphins, let alone, and then there's very small that have done University of Miami Dolphins and the Heat. So when you look back, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool. And then other people are like excited about it. I'm like, oh, I guess it's a cool thing. I guess I'm cool. That's cool. But being a part of the Miami Heat was really amazing because that's where I learned confidence in my moves and dance, confidence in being able to represent a team and conduct interview, like be interviewed, be a strong representative, and to freely dance, like just freely dance and provide enjoyment to other people around you. And then just having a group of really strong women who many were, getting their doctorate, becoming lawyer, like going to school for law. And you wouldn't think that on the outside, that these are really intelligent women that I was with. And especially when I went back and after my divorce from my first marriage, I went right back to dance and I became the assistant director. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't dance because I just, my stomach, I had a baby. I don't know if I can go right back to it, but I was able to be an assistant, and little Alexandria was with me everywhere. She was at late night rehearsal sleeping. She was at the court. She grew up with the team. When we go back to games, like security knows her. Like everyone knows her in the office, and it's amazing. So it's like another family. To me, it was a support system, and I can call on people anytime if you need something or someone to talk to. And now we're all moms and doing all these amazing things, and it's a beautiful. So I think it's almost like I never did a sorority or anything like that because I was always on a dance or cheerleading team. So I guess that was my sorority. That's who I hung out with. They're still friends with me to this day. Some of them have gone on to do amazing things, and they're being interviewed in my book. Like one person I just interviewed, Nadia Turner. She used to be on American Idol the year Carrie Underwood won, and she was top 8. So with her, who else? Oh, one, Natalia, I'm going to be interviewing her on Monday. She is now the director for the Heat Dancers, and she tried out like 5 times before she made the team. Talk about resilience there.
Love that.
I was able to interview Nikki Sapp. Well, she's excuse me, now has a big podcast, and she's not Nikki Sapp anymore, but that's what she was before she got married. But she has her own before. So she has her own podcast. Like all of these amazing DJ Irie, he was our DJ when I was a dancer back in the day. I just spoke with him. He's like, I'll help interview. I'm like, oh, so I get to interview all of these people that I knew back when who are now doing these amazing things internationally all over the world. And it's, and they're truly resilient when you hear everything that they've gone through and how I'm just excited about how their stories are going to be able to help other people say, oh my gosh, if they did this and they went through all of this, because we don't really see everything. It's like a mountain. You only see the peak of the success, but you don't see everything that happened underneath. That's what we're going to be able to see. That people can see that and say, oh, okay, yeah, there's a change, there's a challenge. But if I am resilient and I maintain my joy through this process and pick up mentors and sponsors and my cheerleaders along the way, I can deliver on my individual goal also,
It's fascinating. So out of curiosity, from an external perspective, I feel like the stereotype is obviously totally off, right? Like it's not right in any way, shape, or form, but there's this stereotype where there's almost like this level of justification to say, I'm not just a cheerleader, I'm not just a dancer, I am, or you're talking about your community as well. They're your peers, they're, doing incredible things, doctors, lawyers, studying, whatever it is, in a quote unquote professional way. How was it in terms of that stereotype that is so far from the truth? And then how was it from a female perspective in terms of just the objectification of beauty and cheerleaders?
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. So I just interviewed Elizabeth Davis. She's the VP at a major healthcare company, and she was a Dolphin cheerleader. We didn't do it at the same time. She was former before me. And we talked about that. So she also realized that, hey, I'm not just a dancer. I'm like pretty smart. Like,
Yeah.
I can actually go after things and I have something great to say and I can contribute. Now she's a VP. So obviously she's really smart, but you can be really smart and care about your physical appearance, your hair, your nails, be completely feminine in your own right, whatever that means to you,
Sure.
and have a brain and utilize your mind in a way that is contributing to society and supporting your family. So, again, it's really about educating other people about who you are, like coming into a space of confidence, like Elizabeth did, where she's like, "Hey, I'm pretty smart. Yeah, I was a cheerleader and I did all these things, but I have so much more to offer. And now I can share about my whole self because she was hiding too. We actually joked about it at a reunion. She's like, yeah, we need to do a podcast or something in the future. And here I am knocking on her door going, hey, are you ready to let everyone know in this book interview? And she's like, yes, I'm ready. And it was just amazing. So yes, there could be that objectifying that you're talking about. But in my mindset, I'm like, that's other people's problem because from a distance, they may see that. But when they meet me, when they speak to me, when they hear about the things that I'm doing and things that people around me are doing and how we're making an impact together to make things better, then they're like, oh, okay. It's almost when people see me and they think I'm really young for my age. I look young for my age. And I start talking about school and this and all these different things and saying my daughter's 20, they're like, oh, okay. And then you see that light switch go off in their head. And then the conversation is a little bit different. And then sometimes I'm like, it's actually kind of nice when someone thinks I'm younger, has low expectations, and then I can wow them,
Oh yeah. I love that. In grad school, I remember I was extremely insecure about, like my position. It was I went to Boston College and I remember it was just very like, I waitress and bartended all throughout undergrad and grad school in order to pay for my school. And I remember I was in an elevator once with a bunch of the kids who I thought were like the smart kids. And they mentioned something like, oh, I don't know. I know I'm not physically attractive, but at least like no one can ever say that I'm dumb. And I remember thinking to myself, that's one thing like no one can ever say about me. Like I know that I'm smart and that's not something that people can see, right? They'll project whatever it is that they see, but that's not something. So it is always such a great feeling in any capacity when people underestimate you and then you open your mouth and they're kind of like, wow, she has a little bit of eloquence. She has good grammar, and you're kind of like, wow, your standards are really low. Like I can blow you out the box if that's what really impresses you.
Remember in a work environment where someone's like, I think it was an email that I sent they said that this is a manager at the time saying, oh, you're trying to act like you're more than you are.
Oh.
From an email. And I was like, well, I don't know how else to be any other way. And this is how I speak. So then of course I go back to my husband. I'm like, what does this mean?
Right.
He's like, oh, so I'm getting his perspective and he's saying, oh, well, you say some things that people don't say. And I go, given that? I always say, given that, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, given that is not a way. Because I was like, so I guess I need, and I guess you need to type the way you speak. The way I write and speak are two different ways. Anyway, So I went through like these little things that kind of make you second guess your intelligence or the way you were raised of how you need to present yourself. And then my dad always, and I go to dad, why? Blah, 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 blah. They're my biggest board members. And my dad said to me, don't ever dim your light to make someone else feel better about themselves. Right. So I'm like, all right, my dad said, so everybody hear it. Yeah. And I'm not saying everything I say is the best or everything I do is the best, but I'm like, this is who I am. And as long as I'm not hurting or harming anyone, this is what you get.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I'm just guessing as an outsider who just met you, but I think the British colloquialism, because of your background, your language and your word choice is not fitting to their stereotype of how they assume your identity is. So it's almost like, again, that you should be in a box, like you're speaking in a way that's not aligned with my projection of your identity, and you're using, terminology that isn't common to this person. And so it makes them uncomfortable, and then they try and correct you, and you're like, oh wait, hold up, wait a minute, I think I know a little bit more about British colloquialism or different language word choice than I need to be schooled on in this
Well,
capacity.
my thing too is like, I don't know what other word to use. Like what like, how do I say things the way that you want me to? But then I don't even understand it any other way. So you're going to have to tell me the word, explain what the word is, and tell me
Yeah.
how to do it. So
Yeah, it is fascinating. I've had that happen before. I remember I was in high school, and I applied for a job to be a receptionist at a hair salon. And I was like maybe a junior in high school. And I remember talking to the woman on the phone, and it was very, very, very clear to me that when I showed up to the interview, she expected to see like a white girl. And I remember when she saw me, she was like, you don't sound the way that you look. And I'm like, what? I have never heard that before. And then it makes you second guess. Like, am am I not communicating in a way that's aligned with and when you're very young, of course, you can really get in your head about that. But now as you're older, it's like, it's easier to just be like, it's not, this is my saying. I wonder what you think about it.
let's say,
It says, it's not me, it's you.
yes, everything you're saying, I needed to hear that like years ago. I mean, I would know it as a therapist, but then I'm hearing you say this and I'm like, I'm normal. It's not me. It's you. Like you're trying to make me a certain way, but I don't even know. And then you get mad because I can't do it. Like I tried to like go undercover and come back and tell you, but and then I was like, I'm too tired. I can't waste that.
So tell me, so you lead in the healthcare and behavioral health sectors, and that in itself has unique challenges. Tell me a little bit about how you navigate those challenges in those settings.
Yeah. So with mental health, I mean, there's a lot. Well, let's say this. Before COVID, there was a lot of things going on in the mental health space where, um, it was kind of, there were barriers to get mental health. It wasn't discussed. There was stigma about it. It was still there. COVID comes and now it's exposed, because everyone is going through it, or everyone now has language to explain what they're going through. And now people have expectations, especially in the workplace, of access to get services for that space. So it kind of opened up and put mental health on the map, not only in the United States, but internationally as well, where there's even higher stigma for that also. So now that people are more aware and now they have expectations, now organizations have expectations that they need to meet for their employees, there's not enough providers to provide the services that are there. So there are not enough human beings. Now there are all of these different AI tools to help mitigate that people are using as well. But there's still that need for, whether it's virtual or not, or in person, that need for mental health services and that need for access. And especially if you think about in the rural places where you can't really get to, and some of them don't have internet access. So how are we going to help the masses of people in the United States, throughout the world, with this mental health crisis that we have? It's like its own kind of pandemic because now it's exposed. So it's not saying that people need help more after the COVID, it's exposing it. So people may have had underlying mental health concerns before, and it may not have be to the extreme of a diagnosis, but it's enough to say, I need some type of support, some type of help. It might be an adjustment to a change or a challenge, or it could be underlying long-term needs that they have. So this space, there's a high need to pay attention to it and at the same time tackle the stigma to make sure that the people who need the help are getting it the most. So it's a complex thing, just like humans are complex. Mental health is complex, so much so that yes, it's about mind, but it also affects your body. So you might have people coming in to a doctor's office to fix a physical ailment, and they might run every single test and can't find anything physically wrong. And then that's when you have to look at the mindset and the way that you're thinking about things. And maybe there's a mental health concern going on, but your body is just picking it up as a kind of like a beacon or a radar to say, hey, we need to dive into this a little bit deeper to see what's going on. And because of the stigma, people are thinking, well, I don't want people to think I'm crazy. However, we're human beings and we have to adjust to change. So sometimes talking about it with a professional is helpful. For other people, they might feel comfortable talking to a family member or friend and it's not something diagnosable. To others, they may want to call a help hotline just to assess where they are and just to have someone to talk to. So there are all of these, nowadays, there's all of these different avenues to get help, but we just need people to be aware that they can get it and they don't have to worry about a stigma attached to it. And they have to kind of read the room to share information where they know it's healthy for them to share. And by having an expert to talk to, they can help you navigate to determine who you should share information with, who you shouldn't, how you can get the support and help that you need.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I really appreciate you saying it and synthesizing such a complex um, issue in our world. And I think you're absolutely right that post-COVID, we've been introduced to different terminology. I think we've taken a step to understand that it is mainstream. I think more people suffer from various different aspects of mental wellness, challenges. Because sometimes it's just what's happened. Things happen in waves. So sometimes you're going through something personally in your life, and you really need support, and your mental wellness is suffering as a result of whatever that experience is, and you're not going to be at your best, and you're dealing with this high level of stress, which is obviously going to have an impact on your body and your productivity if you're working for an organization, and being able to really get to the root of the issue, whether it's something that's diagnosable or a trauma or something like a wave of, the challenges that are inevitable in life just happen. And
Yeah,
so
and there's
having that.
oh yeah, I was gonna say, and for there could be something that's chronic where it's there all the time that you could get services for. But or that it could be acute where your stress level spikes because you have a deadline that you need to meet. And sometimes we have stress that could be positive in a sense, or anxiety, or feelings of anxiety that's positive. Like I would have, that anxiety right before getting on the stage or performing
Yeah.
or speaking or performing, and you have that anxiety, but it like jolts you into, performing and having that energy. And then it kind of subsides after the event's over. But when we're talking about where it doesn't subside and you're getting hit with trauma after trauma, and some people are going through a life changing thing constantly. Like I had someone share how, their estranged mom passed away. Their son was diagnosed with an illness. They were going through a separation. Like all of these things were happening at the same time. And why do we need a stigma? If someone's going through all of that's normal to say, okay, I need support for this so that I can come out on the other side being my authentic self, so that I can contribute and give back to my, raise my kids, give back to them, have healthy relationships and move forward and grow in my life. Like, why is there a stigma for that?
Right. Right. I think it goes back to this projection of how you're supposed to be. And historically, pre-COVID, there's this concept of professionalism that's really just a complete illusion. This concept of professionalism is almost like a lack of humanity, where you're dehumanizing your workforce and saying, in order for you to be successful, in order for you to be professional, you leave everything at the door. And that's just not real. Like if something, just something as simple and complex, because I don't want to undermine this as a breakup. I mean, the pain and suffering that you go through if you were with someone and they cheated on you, like I think the old way is like, man up, right? Like just do your job. And meanwhile, you're like dying inside and you're supposed to just leave that at the door. It's just not realistic. So this concept of professionalism, I think that post-COVID, one of the ways in which we've really propelled, let's say 10 years is just by people recognizing that we're all human and we're going to have waves and there's going to be different variances of what that looks like from a mental health perspective. But ultimately that stigma, it's like bullying in a way.
When you talk about professionalism and what that meant back then, or for some people, what they need now, if we start talking about all the different generations that are in the workforce at the same time, what came to mind is like, is it professionalism or is it perfectionism? Like, you know what I mean? Where you have to be perfect on the job site, like, especially if you're a leader, right? Yep. But the leaders that are successful, they are professionally authentic. Like they will be vulnerable, as transparent as they can with their teams so that they can bring their teams together. And then you have that diversity of thought to tackle whatever you need to tackle, to meet whatever goals or changes that you need to meet together. So you can't be the one man, one woman show when you're going through things. And then you also need to have your own board of directors. I call them board of directors or board of mentors, or, your support system. And they could be trusted people in work or peers outside of work. It could be family, could be friends, whoever those people are. And there could be different ones for different aspects of your life, so that when you are going through inevitably something, you have some people to bounce off of, to bounce back into whatever space and what you need to do. But we have to take that time.
Right.
Like we can't, we're human. We're not robots. So right. We have to take that time. And when we do, we bounce back even stronger with more of an expanded mindset, a growth mindset. You come back with even more magic to bring into the workspace.
Yeah. And that comes full circle, because part 3 is you go back in and you accomplish your goals, but you have to have that mind frame and that moment to yourself, figure out what your sensory experience is, figure out how to reframe, figure out how you want to design the change, what you want that landscape to look like, and then go in and crush your goals, because you're actually in a space where you're able to. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck, right?
And I love how you just streamline that, because you're saying you have to, or you get to do this.
Yeah, get to.
No one is imposing this on you, right? So something is being imposed by a change or a challenge, right? And some of these challenges you could put on yourself. Like you're going to say, I'm going to go into a new role, or I'm going to start a business, or whatever. You make the change yourself, or sometimes it's put upon you. But then you get to go discover yourself with that new information. You get to go redesign your landscape with that new information. You get to go and crush your goal, design your goal, recreate it. You get to do all of those 3 things in the pillar yourself, not what other people want you to do.
Yeah.
Like, my mom's goal is to go get the PhD. That's not my goal right now. So, you're in control of that. And like, how amazing, empowering, and adding to your confidence of that when you can say, I decide. Right. I decide for my life.
Right. Control what you can and do your best to let go of things that you can't control, and just, pivot based on your resilience. That's really powerful. I'm so excited for your book. Tell us how we can keep in touch, how we can follow your career. Tell us about the book. I know you have classes as well, like online courses, what we can sign up for. I want to know everything.
Okay. So the best place to find out everything about me is on my website, KeaneInsights.com. So it's KEANE Insights with an S.com. So that's my website. Everything's there. When you go to the website, if you want to know about the book and the process of the book, there's a form that you can fill out, and then you'll be updated
Excellent.
as the progressions of the book come along. So that's wonderful. Yes, we're starting an e-learning course, which it's going to be available at the end of this month.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
yeah, so this is it's a 6-module course. You are able to take those 6 modules, self-pace. There'll be quizzes at the end of the modules. You get an assessment where you can take the pre-assessment ahead of time to determine what your sphere of resilience is on different domains internally and externally. And then after you take the course, you can take the post-assessment to see where you've adjusted. And then you get to see what your strengths are, areas that you want to develop a little bit more. You'll have access to a workbook to go along with the course as well. And then you get all of these different tools. You get a handout about stress management. What are your triggers? So you'll have all of this packaged into the e-learning course that you would have available to you. So this is something where individual people can take the course. And it's also packaged in a way that large organizations can have the course for their employees to take. And it talks about not only individual resilience, but also resilience as a team and organizational resilience, and all that needs to happen for that to happen individually with teams and for the organization. So that's the e-learning course. The book is called The Joyful Leader. I'm reading what the title is because, as I told you before, coming up with the title, it was just, my heart is outside of my chest because it's just, I don't know, it's amazing. So I'm excited. Anyway, the title is The Joyful Leader. Discover resilience through joy and manage stress to elevate your leadership and organizational culture. So that is the full subtitle of the book. So it's The Joyful Leader. And that book, it'll be released for pre-order at the end of this month. And then, so you can find information about that on my website. That'll be coming up shortly. And it's due to be launched next year, April, in time for May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we have it strategized to come out at that time. And my ultimate, I don't want to cry. So my ultimate goal with the course and the book is to help people not go through what I went through in toxic work environments so that they can ready themselves up with their, have the energy that they need to make positive impacts in the world around them and add value and contribute to the world as their ultimate best selves, bringing their best selves forward. So if I get feedback from just one person who either took the course or read the book, that they received some value and they were able to make positive changes in their life, in their family life, in their workplace, that would be gold. Like that is the ultimate goal, is to be able to help people.
Yes. Well, I can be that person. I'm sure you've heard other people say it just from this very limited amount of time that I've had the pleasure of speaking with you. I have my notes here and I feel like I gained a lot, and I can't thank you enough because your message is really powerful. And I think that it's always been needed. I wish it came sooner. It's unfortunate that it's like a new space where people are less likely to stigmatize, but that stigma is still there. And it's such a powerful message. I can't wait to see the book drop and take the class and really think about how I can improve my resilience and my coping abilities with stress, because I am a stressor. So I look forward to those tidbits because they're very, helpful in terms of just physical wellness as a mom, as a daughter, as a partner in life, et cetera, as a friend. It's like you want to show up with your best self, and it's so hard to do when you aren't feeling it, because of all the stress that's inevitable in life that comes at you, and being able to circumvent that, being able to manage that in a way with strategies that are useful and humanizing, most importantly, that empowerment, that message that you're sharing. I mean, it's priceless. And I'll be the first one to be sending it your way. So thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Dr. Sadhna Bokhiria, and this is Leader Voices. This show is brought to you by the American Express Leadership Academy Alumni Network and leaderstories.org. Leader Voices is audio engineered by Robbie Ladd and produced by Crepandy and team at OTVO Digital. Special thanks to Caitlin Johnson and Michael Chang. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.